Good afternoon, Facebook. It is me for part two. Part one was out of this world. I thank everybody for signing in. I thank everybody for just being open enough to hear conversations. We've had great meetings throughout the state, throughout the nation about domestic violence. But if anything, if you know me, Foundations for Living, we're going to put a twist to it. We're not going to stay normal because I don't serve a normal God. I serve an extraordinary God who wants us to go big for him. So part two was great. Now we're ready for part one. Who can I run to? Part one. And let me tell you a little history about the whole situation. Who Can I Run To is the title of a song by Escape, the singing group. And that song was the song. I mean, everybody, who do I run to? I can sing just a little bit, just a little bit.
When I
But
need love.
same. But as I was approached about writing a curriculum about domestic violence and how the faith community needs to be a part of that active movement, that song dropped in my spirit. And I was like, why is it? Why is it so important? So the lyrics go as this. And again, I do not own the rights to this song. I'm just borrowing it to show you something. As I stand here contemplating on the right thing to decide, will I take the wrong direction? All my life, where will I go? What lies ahead of me? I have strong determination and I'm not afraid to change. I have yet to find that someone who would care to satisfy me, to stay right by me. Who can I run to share this empty space? Who can I run to when I need love? Who can I run to fill this empty space with laughter? Who can I run to when I need love? And when we have people that are running for domestic violence, they're missing something. It's called a safe place. It's a place that they can feel comfortable, of safe, of security, a place of security. But the church sometimes are nowhere to be found, or your grandmother's house, your uncle's house, the grocery store. And this is what this conversation is about. It's about communities that need to feel safe. In 2019, and I don't know if you remember this, 2019, the state of Georgia had a 166 deaths from domestic violence. 166. We're a ranked, state of Georgia is ranked number 8th in the nation for domestic violence. And today we come to talk about it. Like I said, I love the panel from part one, but the panel that we have today, God has blessed me with some great friends. And we have two more supposed to be coming in. But today I have two people that are from Texas that I love. And I've only known them a short period of time, but it doesn't take long to connect with somebody. The Bible says, try the spirit by the spirit. And Miss Deshawn McCants is a wonderful woman, stylish. As you can see, she got her hair, she's got her makeup, it's beat, she's got her earrings. But the most thing I love about her, from what you see on the outside, the inside is more radiant. So Deshaun will speak, and then we have my little nephew. He think he grown, but I still come and get him. This is Ian Haddock from Texas as well. And I'm just proud of both of y'all and the work that you're doing. So ladies first, you're going to introduce yourself, whatever you want to say, and then pass the ball on to Ian, and then we'll start the conversation.
Well, hello, Miss Sandy Bailey, as most call you Auntie Sandy. I am Shadon McCants. Yes, guys, she loves to call me Deshawn, and it is
Right.
okay. She loves to impose that D first, and I am so used to it. But I am Shadon McCants. I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been doing that work for approximately 7 years licensed. However, I have been a counselor, I tell people, since I was a little kid. I've been offering services of healing and inspiration, and just getting people back on their journey, since I was a little girl. And I also am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called To Know Is to Live. And the whole goal and work of that nonprofit is to bring education and advocacy and empowerment to Black women and girls around HIV. I am a woman, beautiful, bold, living with HIV for 25 years. I celebrate December 19th, my celebratory. And I am excited about all that has been laid in my space, the purpose that I've been given. So that's just a little bit about me. I know we are here to talk about all things domestic violence. What does that look like? And I'm ready to get into this conversation. So thank you again for having me.
Not a problem.
Absolutely. And I always love Shadon's introduction, baby. If Shadon knows how to do a lot of different things, but one thing she knows how to do is do an introduction. When I start my church, I'm gonna put you on. So I want to first apologize for my lighting. Only my auntie Sandy Bailey Gwen could get me on a Zoom on my birthday vacation. But I am here, I am queer, so let's get used to it. So I am the executive director of the Normal Anomaly Initiative. I also serve as the president of Impulse Group Houston, where our mission is to connect, support, and engage gay men globally. And I am a communication specialist at the National Alliance of State and Territorial AIDS Directors. But none of that really matters tonight. Tonight, I am a perpetrator of intimate partner violence. Tonight, I am the bad guy because I come from a space where I didn't know how to articulate my emotions, articulate my feelings. And so I took those out.
Ian, stop right there. Stop right there. What is, define that word, the intimate domestic, because some people know it as domestic violence, but there's a new twist to it now. We're always creating new words, but break that word down. And then, Shadon, I want you to break it down.
Yeah, so intimate partner violence is a space where we reimagine what it means to me to be in domestic violence situations. So when we think of domestic violence, we automatically, because of the white supremacist patriarchal society in which we live in, we automatically think of men beating women. But the truth of the matter is, if we were to really get comfortable, is women beat men, women beat women, men beat men, and all of the other genders and pronouns in between. And so we have to reimagine what it means to be in domestic violence situations. And so intimate partner violence means that there's somebody that I have an intimate connection with.
There you go.
Right? And I am perpetrating violence against their body, against their mind, against their sense of socialization, against their psychology, against their emotions, right? And so that's where intimate partner violence comes from. But Shadon's a therapist, so she probably is going to give us a little bit more.
And you know, Shadon's like, wait a minute, you did good, but I want Shadon to go there, but I want you to go here, Shadon, with your degree. Psychologically, I do not have to put my hand on you, but I can get into your mind and abuse you from the inside out. Talk to me about that.
So, and I'm glad that Ian gave that explanation, because of course, a lot of it, when we think of domestic violence, or we think of what we are now coined intimate partner violence, is the word violence is still there. Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's intimate partner violence, we think of the violence portion of it. And ultimately, when you think of violence, you think of the physical effects. However, I'm going to sit here and tell you that intimate partner violence is way more intense when it is an actual psychological and emotional abuse. Those are the worst. I would rather you put your hands on me, punch me in the eye, because that black eye's going to heal. But what's not going to heal oftentimes, and is the hardest to heal, I shouldn't say isn't, but the hardest to heal is the mental and psychological abuse that has been done by a perpetrator. Those are when someone tells you who you are, or they beat you down emotionally and mentally, telling you that you will never be anything, that no one will ever love you, that you can never be anything with or without me. That type of abuse is the most damaging abuse, because it requires, you can't see it. It's here. it's so spiritual. It's within the depths of our souls and our spirits. And so when we talk about intimate partner violence, yes, it is between an intimate partner. And the other thing that I want to bring up today even more that we don't talk about is when we talk about intimate relationships, it doesn't just mean a person that you're physically intimate with. This could be even also in a friendship. And a lot of people don't think about that, but that is something that I want to bring to the table today, because also as a woman that is living with HIV, I've also experienced that form of intimate partner violence, someone that you're intimate with within a friendship that you can also experience abuse, whether it more than likely, oftentimes it's not physical, but it could be definitely mentally and emotionally abusive. And that too, we need to make sure that we, as we talk about this today on this platform, that we don't leave out the form.
Ian, pick up from there.
Violence and what that may look like.
Okay, she
So,
good. Hold up. So Ian start the football game off with the definitions in his very unique way, as always. And then you came and broke it down, but you added something. You went from an intimate between man and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, to the fact of just a relationship of we kicking it as friends. That mental control, that manipulation can also go from my friend, for real friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the point that they can get what they want out of me and control me all at the same time.
Yes.
Ian, do you feel that way, or do you see that in your community?
Oh, I definitely see that, because we are a people of groupthink, right?
What's the group thing? Talk to me.
So groupthink is this idea that someone who is in power, someone who has influence, makes up a decision, right? And that everybody goes along with it because going against that person. When we think about groupthink, it really comes from our religious traditions, if we're being honest, right?
You know, Foundations for Living, that's how we do, baby.
Yeah. I am a church queen to my core. I listen to gospel both in my prayer time and my drink time, amen. And so I'm really a church queen to my core. But the reality is groupthink really comes from the pastor. You know, the pastor is the most powerful place that you can be that has no training.
You got a point. I can't argue with you.
And what happens is what the pastor says, people get in line with. They get in line with it. And it's this idea of this group thing, right, that we sit within. And so what happens is if I go against that person, then I get hurt. And so it's this emotional manipulation. I remember coming out. So by the way, I said I'm queer. You know, so when I came out, I was talking to one of my brothers who happens to be a bishop now. He was just accepting his call to ministry at the time, and I was really trying to figure out. And I'm on your platform, so I'm gonna be very careful. But I was really trying to figure out what type of things was I interested in as a young man, finally interested in sex. And I remember going to him and talking to him about like, I am thinking of some things that don't seem to be what people would consider natural.
I hear you.
And I'm having some issues with that because as a person who wants to move up in the church system, I don't know how to deal with that. And he basically told me that those things are normal. Most men think those things or have those issues. And I don't necessarily believe that, but I'm telling you my anecdotal evidence, right? Most people have those things or have those feelings, but it's how comfortable you are putting that in the public. Right? And so at that point, I began to think that in order to be who I needed to be, I had to subtract myself from the public and do things in private. And before I knew it, I ended up with syphilis, right? Both the manifestation physically and the manifestation spiritually began to come into my body because I was keeping myself from really learning who I needed to be. And so spiritually, I got syphilis, and physically, I got syphilis.
So because you really did not own up to what you were feeling, you were denying it. So you necessarily didn't get the right education, the right support to protect yourself physically as well as mentally.
And then thereafter, at my mother's funeral, her death day was just yesterday. He preached against homosexuality. That was his sermon. After talking to me for years about this and about his suppression, and I think about those things, and it's about groupthink. That is emotional manipulation. So me being me, because I am comfortable with who I am and I'm comfortable with who God called me to be, I just walked out the service.
I hear you.
Right? But many people would be emotionally manipulated, right, into believing that they had to be this person instead of walking through their deliverance, walking through their healing, or walking through the acknowledgement of who they call themselves to be. And that itself is intimate partner violence.
Exactly. And and people don't like to see it from the spiritual pool, from the church house. Because the way that you broke it down is exactly, what I'm getting at is that intimate partner violence isn't just between a man and a woman, or individuals that you think are sexually entwined. There's so many levels to how someone can play on your psyche to get you to be in a situation that either A, is not right, or B, you don't know and you're like, okay, but something isn't right. And so, yeah, intimate partner violence is real, and it goes far beyond your sexual partners.
So it's so many angles I could take that. So I'm gonna go in this one, being a faith leader. We as ministers, there's some things we know, there's some things we don't know. And I can tell you, because of the conversations and where God has placed me dead in the middle, the majority of us do not know how to articulate when that conversation happens, like when you coming out with your sexuality. And if you don't have a pastor that's even been anywhere to even have seen a conversation like this or know how to handle it, we can damage a soul. And God is nowhere in the midst of damaging a soul whatsoever. And stigma can mess up a life to where we are right now, baby. I feel you. And I'm going to say this, I apologize to you.
I gotta say this, Auntie. I've said this personally. I've never said this publicly, especially in a space of faith, because I love God and I love church. But do you know how it feels to be sent to hell on earth? Has anyone ever committed the violence of completely disrupting your lived experience and putting you in hell? It is such an immense amount of weight that is put on the backs of people living with HIV, and people that are sex workers, and people of the LGBTQIA spectrum, when you just submit them to hell because you don't get it. And let me take it a little further.
Talk, baby, talk.
It is so violent, right? Because what you are saying is not about hell. At this point, we have gotten to the point where we understand, according to the people, there's a chance I'm going to hell. And for some of us, we have just gotten comfortable with that particular idea.
Yeah.
But this is the issue. What you're saying is you don't want to be with us in the afterlife, that our life is not valuable enough for you to be connected to us and love us through the afterlife. And so what that says to a person who's lost his mother and lost his grandpa and lost his grandma, what that really says to a person like me is that I can never be connected to them because you don't want me. That's violence.
Violence, and I'm gonna tell you, God ain't no way in that. No. God is nowhere in that, nowhere in the Bible. I can articulate that. So for me right now, forgive that pastor, and we pray somebody goes and educate them, because you've just educated, I'm gonna say, millions of people. You have freed up millions of women and men who have been condemned for being who they are. Ah, but today, God is saying, I'm in the midst of this conversation and freedom will take place. Deliverance will take place because I'm a God of yesterday, today, and forevermore. So if my love worked then, it's going to work today and it's going to, my God, I thank you. That's why we couldn't get on because the enemy knew what we were going to talk about. Shadon, don't play with me, baby. God is doing some things today. And I praise God for y'all. Whew. Look, I got folks on here going, wow, wow, because it's time for freedom.
It is.
It's time for freedom, Shadon. I know I got to get back on point. I know I got to get back on point. Okay, free, Shadon. Why do I feel as if I'm losing who I am? This is a question that somebody gave me. When they are diagnosed, a female, when do they stop dying on the inside?
Ooh, baby. How long we got?
Look, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be nice, but come on.
So that's a short and long answer. So for me, as I stated, December makes 25 years for me. However, the world did not know my story until last year, December 19th, when I celebrated 24 years publicly to the world. And so the question becomes,
how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 42. I found out when I was 17, senior in high school. And so the question, you know, when does a woman, if I'm correct, when does a woman stop dying? What was the question again? Say it again.
She asked, why do I feel as if I'm losing who I am?
So the reason that you lose who you are is kind of what Ian talked about, but I'm gonna talk about it from my space. So 17, diagnosed. So there's two parts to my story. And I tell this and I say this to people. Some people will understand it and some people won't. For me, God had already let me know that I was diagnosed before I went into the doctor's office. I called the doctors and told them I needed to be tested at 17. So who does that? What 17-year-old wants to get an HIV test? Well, I did, because spirit had already settled in my spirit that there was about to be a shift. And so for me, when I got tested and my doctor, you know, said, unfortunately, Shadon, you've been diagnosed with HIV. Immediately, I sat there with a smirk on my face while my mom and my doctor sat in the same room. They're crying and I'm looking like, and I'm hearing spirit say, this isn't unto death. This isn't unto death. I literally heard those words. My spirit became, it was what it was. And so my next question to them is, okay, so what's the next step? What do we do? However, though, there is still that human part of us that experiences this human world that tells us who we are. It told me, or it tries to tell me, that I am HIV. Meaning that when I think of HIV, you think of death, you think of darkness, you think of disgusting, you think of nasty, you think of a woman who has slept with 1,000,001 partners, or you think of all these disgusting, nasty things. And so therefore, that's what you ascribe to immediately. When you hear the word you are, or you have been, or you have contracted, or whatever, however they choose to tell you, that's where your mind goes. Oh, wow, I'm HIV. Versus believing that, no, I am still the beautiful, bold woman, courageous and confident that I was created to be, that I am not my diagnosis. Therefore, you take that on. And so, yes, as long as you ascribe to stigma and shame, fear and guilt, you will ascribe to dying inside. But once you step up and realize that I am not my diagnosis, I am not HIV, I am not HIV. What I am is I am a human living with HIV. Therefore, I deserve and I will be respected in the space that I stand in, because until God comes and tells me that this is it and that my time I've arrived, that it's time for me to go, I'm going to live and thrive in the space that I have been called to live and thrive in. And so I say that, though, and I can tell this woman, whoever is listening, I get it, baby girl, because I've been there. You know, you're afraid of what people will think. You're afraid of what people will say. You know, heck, whether it's your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your best friend, there's a life that we live under this bubble. I tell people I lived in a bubble. I lived in a bubble. Even though I was working and going to school and graduating and did all these things, I still was living afraid of what people were thinking. So therefore I was continuing to die inside until I went on a spiritual journey in 2018. And I said, okay, well, wait a minute. Okay, Lord. Because the other thing was, like I said, at 17, he told me, this isn't unto death, but I also heard that I'm going to use you, that that I'm going to use you. And I said at 17, and I tell people, I did just this to the Spirit. I said, okay, Spirit, well, I didn't sign up for that. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing me, and then I'll catch up with you on the other side. And so for those 24 years, I battled back and forth with, what does this look like? But always knowing that he was going to use me. And so as I went on my journey of spirituality, and I say spirituality because it was far beyond religion, because religion, honestly, if I'm truthful, was and is one of my intimate partner violence. It's one of my partners who victimized me in my journey. And so as long as I allowed religion to beat me up, I was able to stay in that space also. And I know we don't like to think about that, and I'm not being, hopefully nobody takes this offensively, but religion will definitely beat you up and beat you down and keep you in a space where we talk about intimate partner violence. They are a perpetrator of violence amongst women living with HIV. And so once I was able to go on a spiritual journey and connect to God, because that's who it is, that's what it's about. Our relationship is with him. It is with no one else. It's not with anyone else. And when I realized that he was taking me to a different place, and that I was able to connect with him, and he was able to connect with me and say, you know what? I need you to do some things, and I need you to surrender, but I also need you to know that I got you. Then I was able to just walk in this space. And so that baby girl that's dying inside, baby, when you realize that you are not your diagnosis, you will be able to live, and not just live, but you will be able to thrive in whatever it is that you've been called to do. And so that's the place that I ask women, and again, as part of who I am and what I do, is because that's what I want women to do, is to know that, guess what, baby, we are not our diagnosis. We are okay, I'm on here with Auntie Sarah.
Right.
We some bad women that we know that we matter, and that we are not going anywhere. And all that stuff that's been told to us, that's not the message that we any longer should ascribe to. When I say it, people ask me why, because there was a time where I didn't believe that I was beautiful. I didn't believe that I was bold. I didn't believe that I was courageous. I didn't believe that I had the ability to do the things that I'm able to do right now. So, baby girl, hit me up. I will help you to make sure that you don't continue to die inside, because that's not how we're going to do. That's not what we're built to do. And I'm telling you that I'm done with all of the perpetrators continuing to victimize me and keep me in a space where, guess what, I don't grow, and that I don't thrive, and I don't living my best life, ain't going back and forth with you. So that's a little bit of where I'm at with how I stopped dying inside.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ian.
Shadon, I just love to hear your story. And it reminds me of the woman, the Bible says, with an issue of blood, but who had endometriosis, right? She had endometriosis, right? Let's be real. Let's be clear.
Okay, doctor.
I mean, she was having, issues with the blood. And so when Shadon talks about her issue, right? Look at how the Bible still is relative. Her issue with blood, right? What is so powerful is when people talk about that parable in the Bible, they're always talking from this space of wanting healing. How do I find myself? How do I ground myself? How do I let go of the stigma and the baggage and the hurt and the pain? But the scripture does not say, and she was made healed. The scripture says she was made whole.
Talk, sir.
Right. And so what we got to be clear with is there are going to be some things that happen in our life I feel like my cross is my queerness, right? Because there are going to be some things that happen in our life that people are going to mock, and they're going to stigmatize, and they're going to make us feel uncomfortable. But God is not trying to heal us without making us whole. Go get you some therapy, sis. Go talk to some people. Go love on some people. Go let some people love on you. Go sit by the water and listen
My
how
God.
beautiful it is. Get made whole. Sometimes in all of this reality, our healing is in our wholeness.
Ian, say that again.
Sometime in all of this, our healing is in our wholeness.
The wholeness.
We're so worried about just this getting fixed. This getting fixed because we're in the refiner's fire, right? And we're not understanding, right, that we're being purified so that we can come out as gold. But all we see is the fire. God is just saying, we just want to make you whole. The healing is already there.
Come on, sir.
And it's really what you said. The healing is in living wholeheartedly. So, and when we talk about what does living wholeheartedly look like, you know, I am a certified Daring Way facilitator as well. And a part of that work is through Brene Brown. And there's 10 guideposts to living wholeheartedly. And that's exactly it. When you are able to live wholeheartedly who you were designed and created to be, it ain't nothing that nobody, and I mean not a soul, can say or do to me.
Okay.
Try,
Okay.
but they
Shadon,
can't.
this my show. This my show. This my show.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, who? Okay. Y'all done messed up a whole lot of people. When I tell you, Facebook is just like blowing up on my end. Y'all doing the doggone thing. Ian, can men be victims of domestic violence?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the conversations we are afraid to have, because it's kind of, Black women are the most oppressed people in the world, right? And because of that, many of the times, the only times that they have to deal with that oppression and fight against it is with their men. And so, and that's just not Black women, that's also other women of color too. And you think about COVID, right? Black women have always had to work hard, take care of the kids, take care of the home, but they didn't have to teach the kids too. And so domestic violence is, skyrocketing. And a lot of that is just conversations around the fact that women can be perpetrators of domestic violence. And how do we really deal with that, right? Because I am a proponent of defunding the police. I don't think the police does anything but kill Black bodies.
Ian. Boy, anyway.
Can we get back to men being beat?
I was going there.
That part.
I was going there. Go ahead, Shadon, because I didn't went down my rabbit hole too deep.
Yes. That's why I love you, because you are about justice, regardless across the board. You want people to be treated right. And I love that. You will fight for the right cause. So I'm not going to take that from you. I'm just not going to let you talk about it today. We're going to stay on the platform. But
go ahead, Shadon.
But to answer his question, yes, men are abused just as much. Maybe not just as much, but men are abused in relationships. I can be honest, I don't necessarily want to say that I personally perpetrated abuse on men, but I know one of the ways that I used to show love early on was by hitting and punching and slapping an individual. Not necessarily to gain control or power, but I do know that, and I do actually know of a man that has been in an abusive relationship, and it's shattering to me to see it, but I've seen it, both physical and emotional. So yes, it does happen, and it's we don't think it happens because again, we're accustomed to believing that domestic violence is men on women. And we're definitely accustomed to believing, and I think this is kind of where Ian was going, and it's in my head, is that, domestic violence is from, also we know it to be perpetrated from in the African American community. That's where we often see it, even though we know it's perpetrated in all communities.
All communities.
And definitely perpetrated amongst certain professions a lot more than others, if we really want to have that conversation as well.
On the show prior to this one, which I had the district attorney's office investigator Renata Pittman, she actually, and Mandy Evans, talked about the economic levels. I don't care if you make 20,000, 200,000. I don't care if you come from all-American white family to Latino. I had a conversation, a young lady emailed me from the Asian community, how this young lady was trying to get out. She didn't have any money. She didn't want any money. She was so suppressed in her mental state of strength. All she wanted was to get out.
Yes.
She knew nobody. So every race, if you are a human, you are bound to know of this situation going on in your home or your communities.
Yes.
Ian, talk to me, because I did not know this until you told me that you were the one that was on the opposite side. You were actually a perpetrator.
So I was completely out of control, but out of control, I don't mean the colloquialism out of control. I mean, like, I did not have control anymore. This was a person that I had emotionally manipulated for about 2 years, and this person was coming to. And I felt like I no longer had control. And because of my personal insecurity, because of my personal brokenness, because of my feelings that another person wasn't going to get to hurt me like the last person hurt me, I fought him. I mean, I beat him because he did not fight me back. And I tell this story, thank God that, nothing bad happened. But I tell this story because I think it's important to understand for people that are perpetrating domestic violence, what that internal dialogue must look like. Even after I beat this person and had to call the paramedics, it was that bad. The fire department came, this person came too. They asked him several times, was this a domestic violence situation? And he said several times, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. And he stayed with me for some time. But I think it's important to understand that it did not change until I did not change until he left. I did not change.
I hear you.
Until he left. When he decided that he was worth more, that he could do better, that he could live a more fruitful life, that's when Ian changed. That's when Ian went to therapy. That's when Ian built up himself. And so though he still lives in Houston, I live in Houston, I haven't seen him nor spoke to him in over a decade. We have no connection, and neither does he desire a connection as he should. But it's so weird. He was the biggest catalyst to the person that you sitting in front of you right now. Because had he not left, I would have still been insecure, broken, disgusted, and not feeling good enough, right? It was in his leaving. Leave, people. Leave. If you love that, people have said many times, I love him too much to leave him. My answer to that is you got to love him enough to leave him. If you really love him, leave.
Whew. Bruh. Okay. What you literally did, you gave us a mental walkthrough of a perpetrator's mind. You said, I was insecure. I was losing control. You knew that they were waking up. So while this person is being beat, they're pretty much this small in themselves. They have no value. So their value comes out physically when they demote or marginalize somebody else's life. But you said when it came to a point, you changed only when the other person realized my life is better than this.
Yeah.
And because they left, then you found out the true value in who you are.
Yeah, because the thing is, the truth of the matter is, I beat him because he was too good for me, right? I beat the person because I could not imagine how this person would be interested in somebody who was so low and so menial and so off the cuff, who didn't have it together. And so what I'm fighting, right, wasn't the idea that I want to show you I'm in control, which is a lot of what perpetrators said. What I was fighting was myself, because how dare you lower yourself? You are a beautiful, powerful, amazing, educated individual. How dare you lower yourself to allow me to control you? And it was not until he left that I then said, wow, he finally got it. So you got to get it. You got to get it. And it's been a journey over this last decade. I don't really consider myself a gay man because I'm not practicing homosexuality at the moment, because I'm really on a journey to really figure this thing out. Mm-hmm. It's not even about the accolades or the platforms or the positions and places that people put me. It really is about, what do you feel about yourself when no one else is around? One of my mentors told me something really powerful. They said, turn off the TV, turn off the fan, just have the AC. And if you can only think of everything but yourself, you're not ready. And so I've been in this space of meditation of, let me only think about self and how I'm centered and building and broadening my perspective. But it happened because he was the catalyst in walking away.
I'm gonna tell y'all something. I knew this was gonna be a good show. But when God is in the midst of it, my articulation of my expectations is nothing compared to who God is. Baby, y'all two are freeing up some people. Y'all are freeing up some people right now. Oh, Shadon. Okay, my next question. How do you protect yourself? Psychologist, graduate, beautiful, intelligent. How do you protect yourself from having an open door to start abuse? Knowing what you know today, hindsight is 2020. What would you do different?
So as a licensed professional counselor, I think that's a question that you're asking me, I think twofold. Because I am also a licensed professional counselor. I've been in this, like I said, in this work for 7 years. However, I've also been a woman that has experienced intimate partner violence. Most recently, very recent, I will say that. So the question becomes, it's an in-depth, it's a very serious, I think, levels. And Ian kind of hit on the real reality of it, whether you are the perpetrator or you are the victim. It comes down to knowing who you are. When you are, or when there's spaces or places within inside of you, parts that are unhealed, you're very easily subjected to either be the victim or be the victimizer. And both of them are parts of you that are hurt. I'm either going to hurt you because I'm hurting, or I'm going to allow the hurt because that's what I'm used to receiving.
Wow.
And so in my situation, I will speak from personally. I'm actually a therapist with a therapist. So I'm on a journey to understand, how is it that I was able to be in a situation where the individual was, I didn't even realize it. I had been involved with this person for 18 months, and I call it a situationship because, yeah, he wasn't married, but it's a situationship still, nevertheless. But it wasn't until probably the last 6 months that I realized, okay, this doesn't feel safe. This doesn't feel okay. And the more that I thought about it, you calling me your bottom B, or, yeah. And, playing into that role, but I love you and ain't nobody else gonna, and I'm like, but I'm not the same girl though, because by this time I'm living and walking in what I believe my truth of living as a woman with HIV, beautiful, bold, I'm good. However, there was a lot of things that after hindsight, looking at it, I realized that no, this person was really trying to mold me into what they wanted me to be. Even though I felt that they accepted my diagnosis and was okay with it, there were still parts of them that realized that they had fallen in love with a woman who was living with HIV. But not only was she living, she was thriving, and she was thriving into a world, in a world that loved her and accepted her as well. So he tried to really, I think, he just honestly, but it was again, Ian, and I realized it because he was hurt. But the reality was, it's not my place to take away his pain. I can't do that. And
Oh,
Wow.
Shadon, it's not your place to do what?
It's not my place to take away his pain. It's not my place to heal him. It's not my place to stay there and allow that to happen. And so when we talk about how do people get in situations of domestic violence, it's often because that person finds a loophole in a space of hurt and unhealed spaces in that individual. And unless you've done your work and unless you're doing your work, you will and can be a woman enthralled, a woman, a man, however you identify, as an individual that has experienced or is experiencing intimate partner violence. Like you said it, the DA said it, I've said on, I have one of my beautiful mentors, she has a nonprofit here in Houston called Her Voice. And those women are phenomenal women. Some of them lawyers, doctors, professionals, all themselves entrapped in domestic violence situations, never thought that they would be in that situation, never thought that they would see themselves that way. So, I mean, honestly, as a therapist, and I am a therapist that is also, I take pride in being a healer. This is far beyond those things that they taught me in school to do, Sigmund and Freud and Carl Jung and all of those. I believe in healing. I believe in getting to the places and the parts of us that are unhealed, that are used to and experience abuse. So I can take it back to epigenetic. I can take it back to slavery, the things that we have carried, that we have held within our bones and our DNA. It's time that we heal from those parts, because if we don't, we will allow ourselves to get trapped and not even know sometimes that we're in that situation until it's too late.
Scripture says we are healed by the word and the blood of the Lamb.
Mhm.
So with God's blood and your testimony, y'all, we got folks talking about, girl, you better speak, preach, say that, love enough yourself to leave. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. I spoke on it before. It's so hidden, and most men are ashamed to bring it forth.
Oh,
People
yeah.
are trying, just chiming in on what's going on. I'm gonna ask you one question. I'm gonna take it to Ian. When should a person living with HIV disclose their status in a relationship? When do you think?
And I believe that you're asking me that because, again, for women living with HIV, we just, there's a National Day of Awareness around HIV, women living with HIV and violence, intimate partner violence.
Right.
And we know that that is a big contributing factor to when and how we experience intimate partner violence, especially as around disclosure. But just the fact that you're a woman living with HIV. And again, women, I want you guys to hear me. I'm saying it, and I want you to grab on if you have not identified with yourself as living with HIV. There's a big difference.
Ain't nothing dead about you. Ain't nothing dead about you.
Exactly. I'm living, honey. I'm living and thriving. And so shall you. That disclosure can become very deadly. Mm-hmm. I always encourage women at this point, when you are, first off, it is your story. And you choose when someone has earned the right to hear your story. So that's the first thing. Realize a person, an individual, has to earn the right to hear your story. So with that being said, I always encourage, one of the things I encourage is to be in a safe space, because I can admit that there was a time where I did reveal my status and I had a gun pulled on me. And so I will never do that again in that situation or setting. So one of the things that we encourage women to do is to honestly do it, one, when the person has earned the right to hear your story, and two, in a safe space. I always tell people, take them to a restaurant. We can have dinner. This is Dutch. This is Dutch dinner. I don't even want you to think you're paying for the dinner, but I'm gonna tell you in a public place. I'm gonna tell you where, okay, you don't like my response. Okay, security guard, valet, can you walk me to my car? You know, so always I encourage individuals, those are the two things that I always tell you, is definitely make sure that when you are ready to tell the story, when the person has earned the right to hear it. And secondly, always do it in a safe space. Those are the two things, the biggest two things.
All right, nephew. I'm gonna ask you a question. You, and I know you love Jesus. We've talked about this conversation. Here it is. How important is spirituality in the healing process?
Listen, you know, if I didn't know God, I don't know where would I be. And I don't mean that as a cliche statement from church folk or colloquialism that we use to make people feel good. But really, it has been my foundation of God that really has fortified my relationship with people. Because the truth of the matter is, I started to think about, how am I loving someone so incessantly whom I have not seen? That's scripture. And not being able to love the people that I see every day.
Talk, sir.
Right? It is a process of constantly evolving how you decide and perform love. People say that people can't love you unconditionally, but my brother was a dope dealer and got shot 9 times. And though he introduced my mama to crack, she spent 10 months with him at the hospital while he recovered. I know unconditional love. The problem is we don't want to do the work, right? We don't want to do the work because, you know, love is pretty. You know, let's get married. Let's, you know, buy a house. Let's, you know, work our jobs. But we're not talking about that ugly piece, the trauma responses, the triggers that happen, because as people of color, specifically Black people, when we go through life, and the only love we know is the love that they preach at a Baptist church the last 3 minutes of the sermon, right? And then that whole concept of love, right? The whole concept of love where he resurrected to build my skins and to save me from myself is completely redacted when I am a person living with HIV, or a person that is a prostitute, or a person that is queer, or a person that has a child out of wedlock. All of a sudden, his resurrection no longer matters.
What?
Wow. It is really, really important, right, for me to begin to build my relationship with God based on how I was loving everybody else. So once I really realized that those were one and the same, because guess what? I see God in my friend Dwayne. I see God in my auntie Sandy. I see God in Shadon and Titan and so on and so forth, and Jacqueline. And there are people that I don't like. None of them I mentioned, but there are people that I don't like, right? That I have to realize the God in them. And then I have to say, so how are you loving them? And that constant reminder is why I'm not a perpetrator of intimate partner violence. That constant reminder is why I don't do tit for tat and eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. That constant reminder is why I stay on a high wavelength. And guess what? 10 years ago when I beat that man, I was broken and broke. 10 years now, I got money to give to people. And I'm a nonprofit. I don't make no profits. And I got money to pay people and give to people. And it's just because I recognize that God is love.
Yes, sir.
And the only way I'm going to be able to move through this thing is understanding that love really conquers all.
It really does.
Nothing can separate us
From the
from love.
Okay. Second part to that question. How important is it for training to be implemented? Church, ministries, synagogues, Moss, how important when it comes to dealing with people of domestic violence, people of HIV diagnosis? How important?
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna leave most of this to Shadon because she's definitely gonna take us home with this, baby. This is one of her favorite
And
questions.
she's right, because it's about that time. We got to end out.
No, but
So go ahead, Shadon.
I just want to lift up real quick. I just want to lift up before Shadon comes through and tears us apart. I just want to lift up that there's lived experience and there's training. Many people look up to me because they say they can talk to me. And when they talk to me, I tell them to go to a therapist, right? Because there is training that no matter how good I can talk to you, no matter how good I can walk you through things, no matter how much I have on my resume and who I've worked for and where I've went, there is something that I don't have that Shadon has. And it's training, right? It's this training, it's this building. And that's not to say that I am not good enough or not built for it enough. It's just saying that when I really want somebody to find their wholeness, I refuse to say healing because healing is so far away, right? But when I want somebody to find their wholeness, I need to send somebody to somebody that has training. When we're talking about domestic violence, in all reality, these, and I hate to, we talking about Christianity, and that's my heart. The truth of the matter is I've met more abusive pastors than I have abusive people in the congregation.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the man, this patriarchal system where the man makes all the decisions and does everything and you just sit around and listen, and he spends all the money and buys all the stocks and does all the investing with the 401k and the 403bs. You don't get a chance to do nothing but just be a woman. If I can go a little further, be a piece of vagina. Y'all know what I'm saying.
I know. Thank you, babe.
Yes. But the point is we got to get to a place where we understand that this training is so important. And there are some things that people with that training can walk us through that we won't be able to do just on spirit. Judge the spirit by what?
The spirit.
The spirit. The spirit. If the spirit says excellence, if the spirit says wholeness, then the spirit is going to be judged by people who have excellence, expertise, and wholeness in this.
Wow. Yeah.
Shut up. Right.
So I mean, again, Ian hit it. And so your question regarding,
Bring your training.
like the training for the church, the training for the mosque, the training for those spaces that are supposed to feel safe.
Absolutely.
That people will go to, whether it's man or woman. What does that training look like? So I am going to kind of challenge my counterpart, my brother there. He calls it wholeness and I call it healing. And I think it's the same, it's one and the same. Because in order to, healing is a journey, and so is wholeness. You have to wake up each day and be intentional about living wholeheartedly. You have to wake up intentionally in order to be in a space of healing. It's intentional. Healing, though, is a journey, just like to live wholeheartedly is a journey. It's about being intentional about being in that space. So when we talk about these safe spaces, where and how do we train them? I think the first thing is understanding connection, and that it's necessary. People have to feel safe and want to feel connected to be able to come and talk to you and tell you what's going on. As human beings, we are built for connection. We are built
relationship.
We are built to be connected. And so if I don't feel a connection with you, the last thing I'm going to do is feel safe to tell you my story. And so with the individuals, like with the church, with the mosque, with the individual safe spaces, because again, I don't feel that they're all that safe. Oftentimes that's the last place I'm going to go to and tell somebody I'm getting beat. Because the first thing I do is when I tell my prayer mother, I pray that she don't go home and tell her prayer partner on the phone, who gonna then go and tell somebody else. So that's the last place that I'm gonna go. And I'm gonna put it out there because I'm a raised little church mouse, so I done seen it all. From the choir stand to the the organist, the piano and all the musicians, to the praise dancers, to how everything gets around. I just told one person I asked you for prayer, and now all of a sudden everybody know my business that I'm getting meet by somebody. So yeah. So when we talk about training, we need to talk about the core facts that we would think: confidentiality, HIPAA, protection. Those things still matter in the church house. I need trained individuals in those spaces who understand that if I trust you enough, if I feel connected enough to tell you this part of my story, then I need to trust you that you will keep it in the strictest of confidence and then get me to the place that I need so that I can find my reprieve. So I'm just going to start there. I think that's a big part of training when it comes to those places, is understanding that confidentiality is important. I need to be able to trust you, and I need to be able to feel connected to you. And then, of course, just definitely the training goes into making sure that the individuals who are there to support these individuals that come to them, whether it be male or female, that too, you look at your implicit bias. That's a whole nother story, emotional intelligence. There's training that can be done for those individuals in the church house that will and that should have their arms and doors open to receive individuals who have experienced intimate partner violence. So yes, I need y'all to, kind of close your mouth, not gossip, not run and tell the story, but be there to really hold me in the space that I'm in when I come to you in the most vulnerable and transparent place of my life.
Whew. And again, the subject title: who can I run to? Baby. As I said, as I stand here contemplating on the right thing to decide, will I take the wrong direction? All my life, where will I go? What lies ahead of me? I have strong determination, and I'm not afraid of change. I have yet to find that someone who would care to satisfy me, to stay right by me. Who can I run to share this empty space? Who can I run to when I need love? Who can I run to fill this empty space with laughter? Who can I run to when I need love? Ian Haddock, Shadon McCants, Facebook family, I need for y'all to give my babies some claps, some likes, some shares, because y'all did that. Stay tuned. Y'all don't hang up, but I'm gonna hang up from Facebook. Facebook, I appreciate you. As always, Foundations for Living was here to bring strength, transformation to students, families, and communities through inspiration and education. This is Sandy Bailey. Thank you so much for watching. Love, peace, and hair grease.